In Chapter 1, Queen Maki Kirtaban receives a wedding invitation announcing the marriage of her sister, Princess Eri, to King Nikolai of Ravka. The news enrages her. Eri was meant to be dead, replaced by an assassin to trigger war and leave Ravka vulnerable. Maki's original plan was to blame Fjerda for the assassination, invade Ravka, seize its Grisha, and expand Shuhan's empire. Her agent, Mayu, was supposed to kill Nikolai and herself, but the plan has failed, and now Maki suspects Eri is alive and the truth may be exposed. Maki reflects on her mother's dying wish to name Eri as heir, a wish Maki swore to uphold but secretly betrayed by seizing the crown. As she considers her next move, a supernatural shadow, likely tied to the fold, sweeps over her palace, destroying everything it touches, including her young niece Akeni. The devastation halts just short of Maki, signaling that a far greater threat has arrived. In Chapter 2, Nina Zenik walks the harbor marketplace of Gerholm with Hanna and the Brooms, reflecting on her dual role as a Grisha spy disguised as Mila Yandersdat. As they shop for Vinitkala, Nina notes signs of increasing unrest. Raids on saint worshippers, rising miracles orchestrated by the Hringsa, and Fjerda's fear of Grisha gaining public support. A staged play begins, secretly arranged by the Hringsa, featuring saints like Alina and Zoya. When Broom moves to stop it, a wave, summoned by a hidden tidemaker, soaks him and his guards, turning him into a public spectacle. The stunt is a cover for a graffiti-style message. The children of Gel are among you. Back at the ice court, Broom expresses outrage, concerned that Fjerda's people may shift allegiance to Ravkan saints, but when he receives a sealed message, his mood lifts. War is imminent. As Broom readies to leave, Nina steals the note, determined to warn Ravka before it's too late. In Chapter 3, Nikolai, Zoya, and the twins investigate a massive blight near Yaryanosh, land suddenly turned to ashy wasteland eerily similar to the Fold. They interrupt a confrontation between townspeople and a Suli camp, wrongly blamed for the destruction. Nikolai diffuses tensions and reasserts royal authority, protecting the Suli while hiding his growing concern. The blight matches earlier reports and is likely spreading from the Fold. Zoya suspects the Darkling's lingering power, and Nikolai acknowledges the disaster began after their failed ritual and his own failed obispaya. As they collect witness statements, Nikolai reflects on the dangerous legacy of Merzost and the Darkling's return. He avoids confronting Princess Eri about their arranged marriage, though Zoya urges him to act before Queen Maki arrives. A flyer from Nina arrives. Fjerda is preparing for war. Nikolai mobilizes his allies, knowing Ravka is not ready. Still, he embraces the coming conflict, determined to meet it head-on. In Chapter 4, Nina is awakened by Hanna, who warns that someone from the convent has arrived and that Ilva wants to see them both. Fearful that their past sabotage of Broom's Grisha prison might have been discovered, they prepare carefully and present a composed front. At the meeting, they're introduced to the new well-mother, Enka Bergstrand, who replaced the previous one Nina had sent to her death. The well-mother accuses Hanna of hiding contraband, men's clothing, Ravkan icons, and prayer beads. Broom and Ilva are visibly shaken, but Hanna confesses only to the clothes, denying the rest. Nina's quick thinking casts doubt on the full accusation. Broom defends his daughter, and the well-mother demands both Hanna and Nina confess before she departs. Nina is surprised when, behind closed doors, the well-mother greets her by name, revealing she knows Nina's true identity. This unexpected turn signals a new and possibly dangerous player aware of Nina's secret mission inside Fjerda. In Chapter 5, Zoya awaits a tense diplomatic meeting with Hiram Schenk of Kerch, hoping to secure aid against Fjerda. Kerch, having already exploited Ravkan's submarine technology, refuses help, maintaining neutrality and dismissing moral concerns over Jurda Parem. Schenk mocks Ravka's desperation, even alluding to Nikolai's illegitimacy. Zoya's final plea about Nikolai's scientific power fails. Furious, she ends the meeting and prepares to return to the front. As Zoya and Count Kirigan head to their flyer, they're ambushed. Zoya kills one assassin with a wind blast and subdues the other, learning they were sent to punish false saints like her. The attacker calls her Sancta Zoya, signaling a growing cult-like reverence or hatred tied to her power. Zoya suspects Nina Zenik is behind the title's spread. With no Kerch support and assassination attempts escalating, Zoya recommits to battle, determined to defend Ravka by force if not diplomacy. In Chapter 6, Nikolai prepares for Fjerda's surprise invasion, thanks to Nina's intel revealing their twin attack points, Neski and Ulensk. He mobilizes troops under cover of night, plants mines, and positions Grisha and First Army forces in the Pisspot Basin. As Fjerdan tanks roll in, the mines erupt, halting the enemy's momentum. However, Fjerda unleashes a horrific weapon, Grisha, addicted to Jurda Parem, deployed from a monstrous transport. Just as Ravka begins to falter, massive Zemeni airships arrive, dropping an antidote that frees the enslaved Grisha, including Nadia's friend Amelia. This unexpected alliance shifts the battle, forcing Fjerda into retreat. Nikolai learns from General Kirko that a blight, like Ravka's, has struck Novi Zem. Though victorious, Nikolai knows this is only a temporary reprieve. The battle reveals Ravka is not alone, but the growing threat of blight and Jurda warfare signals a darker war ahead, one tied to Merzost and possibly the Fold. In Chapter 7, Nina discovers that the Well Mother is a Grisha squalor and Ravkan spy who has been undercover for 13 years. She brings Nina a new mission: uncover the truth about the Lantsov pretender, Vadik Demidov, and find Queen Tatiana's letters. To gain access to Fjerdan high society, Hana volunteers to participate in the Zhurjanic marriage ritual, despite the personal risk. This launches them into a whirlwind of court preparations and tensions, with Nina battling jealousy and fear for Hana. At the Royal Maidens' Walk event, Nina spots the Apparat and Demidov, whose resemblance to Nikolai seems suspicious. As Hana makes her debut, Prince Rasmus collapses, coughing blood into her arms, throwing the event into chaos. Nina suspects foul play, but remains focused on her goal: infiltrate the enemy, protect Hana, and find a way to stop Fjerda's war plans, even if it means killing Broom and destroying her chances of a future with Hana. In Chapter 8, Nikolai and his companions return to Os Alta after victories at Neski and Ulensk, hoping to use this fragile momentum to forge peace through a political alliance with Shuhan. As they discuss war strategies and diplomatic risks, including a potential threat from the Kerch and the legitimacy of the Lantsov pretender, Vadik Demidov, tensions rise. Upon reaching the palace, they are ambushed not by enemy soldiers but by the Tavgarad, Princess Aries' elite guards, who douse themselves in accelerant and ignite in an act of protest and loyalty to Shuhan. Zoya saves Aerie from full immolation, but she's left critically burned. Nikolai realizes the attack wasn't Aerie's doing, but a coordinated suicide protest by her guards. The incident endangers Ravka's diplomatic hopes with Shuhan and shakes Nikolai deeply. The chapter ends with the court in shock and Aerie being rushed to Grisha healers, leaving Ravka's alliance and stability hanging by a thread. In Chapter 9, Zoya remains by Nikolai's side as a healer treats his burn wounds. Aerie, severely injured, is taken to the little palace. As Zoya supports Nikolai, their bond deepens. Later, the Grisha inner circle gathers to discuss Queen Maki's assassination attempt and the political threat it poses. Tamar reveals Maki's use of Jurda Parem to create Hurgud soldiers through unethical experiments on Grisha. The conversation forces Zoya and others to confront the Grisha's past under the Darkling and question the idea of choice in their military upbringing. That night, Zoya and Nikolai visit the imprisoned Darkling, who confirms the Shadowfold is expanding. He offers a solution: perform the Obisbaya ritual again, but in exchange demands they bring Alina Starkov. Zoya reacts with fury, and Nikolai suspects the Darkling's true aim is to regain his power by expelling Yuri's soul and absorbing Nikolai's demon. They leave, refusing his terms, for now. In Chapter 10, Prince Rasmus collapses in a violent coughing fit during the Heartwood ceremony. Nina urges Hana to pray aloud as cover, while Hana secretly uses her Grisha healing powers to soothe the prince. Royal guards arrive and whisk them away. Brum, deeply suspicious, suspects something but is more focused on the prince's frailty and its threat to Fjerdan leadership. Nina fears Hana's powers were exposed. The prince later summons Hana and Nina privately, thanks them, and promises to protect them. Hana unknowingly continues to heal him. Later, Nina is separated and brought to Queen Agat, who interrogates her identity. Using her necromantic powers, Nina channels secrets from the dead to gain the queen's trust, revealing the queen once used a Grisha healer to survive pregnancy. Nina convinces her Rasmus isn't cursed, but chosen by Jel. Emotionally shaken, the queen dismisses her, believing Nina may hold divine insight into her son's fate. In Chapter 11, Zoya and Nikolai reflect on the Darkling's offer to restage the Obisbaya ritual using Alina, hoping to stop the fold's spread. Zoya reveals painful memories of her childhood and warns Nikolai not to risk his life again. When Nikolai shows her that he can now manifest and control his demon, Zoya is shaken but chooses to stand by him, reaffirming her loyalty even if he remains tethered to shadow. They agree Alina must decide for herself, and Zoya volunteers to escort the Darkling to a secret meeting site if she agrees. The next day, Zoya and Tamara choose an abandoned sanatorium as the location. Zoya informs Genya and David, who confirm the ritual might work but carries great risk. The chapter ends with Zoya resolving to protect Alina, face the danger ahead, and ensure that the Darkling does not return dead or alive from this final gamble. In Chapter 12, Nikolai reflects on Zoya's quiet departure for her mission to bring Alina to the Darkling and how much he misses her. He visits Princess Eri, who is recovering from the attack, and confronts her about Queen Maki's betrayal. Mayu Kirkat, also recovering, confirms that Maki's coded message commanded the Tovgarad to kill themselves and attempt to assassinate the king. Eri begins to realize the truth. Her sister intended her death as a pretext for war. Nikolai offers Mayu a choice: stay alive and help expose Maki's plans, and reveals her brother is alive but turned into a Kurgud. Meanwhile, after nearly dying in a flyer accident, Nikolai visits the secret weapons lab, where David, Genya, Leonie, and others debate the ethics of creating devastating rockets. Though David refuses to build city killers, Nikolai insists they must prepare for all-out war with Fjerda. As Prince Rasmus weakens, Nikolai acknowledges that diplomacy may fail, and Ravka must be ready. In Chapter 13, Nina survives her tense audience with Queen Agata and returns to the Broom's quarters, unsure if her deception will hold. Hana comforts her, and Nina continues playing her role to manipulate the Queen's faith and gain influence. 2 days later, Nina and Hana attend a royal gathering where Prince Rasmus invites them to a private audience. Hana uses her Grisha power to secretly ease his pain again, deepening his trust. Nina spots Vadik Demidov, the Lantsov pretender, and learns from Rasmus that Queen Tatiana's letters, proof of Nikolai's illegitimacy, are hidden in the Druskela sector, guarded by Brum. Nina resolves to steal them, despite the danger. She asks Hana to draw a map of the sector, planning to infiltrate during the royal hunt in 2 days. Their bond deepens as Hana reflects on her father's change and agrees to help. With the prince's favor and her cover secure, Nina prepares for the risky mission. In Chapter 14, Zoya escorts the imprisoned Darkling to a remote sanatorium, hidden by Sun Soldier's camouflage. Despite his chains, he remains composed, claiming knowledge of monks who may hold thornwood seeds needed to cure Nikolai. Their journey is tense as he taunts Zoya about her strength, faith, and mortality. At the sanatorium, Alina, Mal, and Misha await them. Alina greets Zoya warmly, and the old allies prepare to confront the Darkling together. Inside, tensions flare as Alina challenges him over his crimes, his obsession with power, and his refusal to change. He argues he only ever sought safety for the Grisha, but shows no regret. When Alina and Mal affirm their peaceful life, Yuri's voice suddenly erupts from within the Darkling, screaming a warning. He lunges forward, grabbing their joined hands. Shadows surge, plunging the room into darkness. Zoya reacts too late as chaos and power engulf them all. In Chapter 15, Nikolai prepares for a diplomatic wedding intended to forge peace between Ravka and Shu Han. Though he reflects on Zoya's absence, he focuses on orchestrating the arrival of Queen Maki and her entourage. The event is a ruse. Queen Maki expects her sister Eri to marry Nikolai, but is instead presented with a public wedding between Genya and David, meant to delay and distract. During the ceremony, Maki's fury grows as Nikolai reveals that Eri, along with Mayu and Ravkan forces, has returned to Shu Han to expose Maki's assassination plot and secure political support. He warns Maki that her grandmother could revoke her crown and offers a treaty: peace, recognition of Ravka's borders, and protection of Grisha. Though Maki resists, she agrees to consider. As tensions ease, Nikolai experiences a violent surge from the demon within and orders support sent to Zoya's location, sensing she may be in danger. In Chapter 16, Nina and Hana join Prince Rasmus at the royal hunt, but beneath the surface, Nina executes a covert plan. While engaging the prince and Queen Agata with coded language and manipulation, Nina distracts them long enough to infiltrate Jarl Brum's secure quarters. A diversion at the ice court, orchestrated by the Hringsa, gives Nina access to Brum's office. With a special Grisha chemical compound, She dissolves the lock of his hidden safe, searching for letters that could threaten King Nikolai's claim to the Ravkan throne. Instead, she discovers Magnus Optr, Nikolai's biological father, held prisoner. Optr refuses to denounce his son, making him a liability to Broom. Nina chooses not to kill him and promises to return. Meanwhile, Prince Rasmus reveals dangerous cruelty toward Joran, Broom's Druskel, exposing a darker, unstable side. The wolves react strangely to Nina's presence, hinting they sense her connection to death. The chapter ends with Nina fleeing, planning her next move. In Chapter 17, Zoya battles the newly resurrected Darkling, who emerges from the sanatorium with unleashed Nichevoya, shadow soldiers born of Merzost. Despite Zoya's storm and the Sun Soldier's light, the creatures shield him from harm. The Darkling reveals his rebirth was a calculated plan, using Alina and Mal's blood and a hidden thorn from the failed Obispaya. He rises with his winged abominations, declaring his intent to become a saint and savior. Zoya launches a lightning strike to kill him, but he vanishes into shadow. Alina, bleeding from the ritual, insists on returning to Karamzin with Mal, refusing to flee. Though Zoya wants to hide the orphans and send soldiers, Alina reminds her that safety is an illusion. They realize Yuri still lingers inside the Darkling and that he fears Zoya's power. Encouraged by Mal and Alina, Zoya steels herself to face what's coming and deliver the truth to Nikolai. In Chapter 18, Nikolai hosts a diplomatic wedding feast while hiding the pain of Tamar's dangerous mission and Zoya's absence. After Queen Maki departs with a signed treaty, she warns Nikolai of strange blights in Shuhan, Kilaklava, the same dark corruption spreading across nations. She suspects Ravkan involvement, but Nikolai admits the phenomenon resembles the Fold, and is likely tied to the Darkling's return. That night, the party ends, and Nikolai returns to his empty quarters, missing Zoya. His inner demon nearly broke free earlier, and he still fears losing control. Suddenly, alarm bells ring. Fjerdan bombers attack Os Alta. Nikolai scrambles into his peregrine and takes to the skies. When visibility fails, he unleashes the demon, merging with it to destroy the enemy bombers. He lets one pilot live to spread fear. Upon landing, Nikolai finds devastation. The fabricator labs are gone, fires rage, and survivors are being pulled from rubble. Genya weeps in her golden gown. David is missing. In Chapter 19, Mayu waits aboard a Ravkan airship while Tamar and Princess Eri prepare to confront Shu Queen Maki. Though excluded from their full plans, Mayu reflects on her past. Her training as Tavgarad, her bond with her twin Rayam, now turned into a Kurgud soldier, and the betrayal that forced her to impersonate royalty and assassinate Izak. Tamar, Eri, and Mayu land at the temple fields near Amratjen to meet with skeptical ministers Nag and Zihun. Through Eri's stirring testimony and Mayu's supporting confession, the ministers pledge allegiance to Eri. Rejecting a covert palace entry, Eri boldly parades through the city playing patriotic songs on her katur. The people rally behind her. Inside the palace, Queen Maki is forced into a private audience. When she denies the existence of the Kurgud labs, Eri pressures her with proof of their grandmother's allegiance, rare coral roses gifted from the former queen. Cornered, Maki retreats. Mayu silently vows to find her brother. In Chapter 20, Zoya, Genya, and the Grisha mourn David's death beside the lake at the little palace. David's funeral pyre is lit with traditional rites, and Nikolai, raw with grief, delivers a speech honoring David's genius and loyalty. Genya, devastated, struggles to speak but ultimately declares her love for David. Zoya, reflecting on her own past and David's influence, speaks to the soldiers, urging unity and strength through grief. Afterward, Genya insists on attending a war council, needing to act despite her loss. In the meeting with Nikolai, they assess the destruction caused by the Fjerdan attacks, including the loss of titanium vital for missile production. As they debate the ethics of escalating the war, Genya advocates for showing strength to offer Fjerda a choice. Nikolai reveals a bold plan. If they cannot buy titanium from the Kirch, they'll steal it. As the chapter closes, they prepare for a dangerous mission, one that begins with a gamble in Ketterdam. In Chapter 21, Alexander, reborn through the Thornwood and Yuri's sacrifice, wanders Ravka seeking purpose. Haunted by memories and Yuri's voice, he reclaims his identity, not as Yuri or Kirigan, but as Alexander, the Darkling. Drawn to a familiar town, he discovers he has returned to the church built over his grandfather Morozova's workshop. where he once found journals that led to creating the Fold. Descending into the church's hidden basement, Alexander finds the past empty and symbolic, his legacy reduced to dust and broken toys. He reflects on Alina, his past failures, and the chaos caused by the blight he helped unleash. Desperate to reclaim power and reverence, he performs a shadowy miracle in the church, terrifying the congregation and beginning his transformation into a myth. He decides to remain hidden, using Yuri as a public persona while building a new legend. His goal? To awaken awe and reshape the world through fear, faith, and shadow. In Chapter 22, Nina is devastated after learning Fjerda bombed Os Alta, killing Ravkan civilians. Hanna shields her from suspicion while she grieves and strategizes. After feigning illness, Nina requests Hanna to weaken Prince Rasmus again. Later, Queen Agata summons Nina, suspicious of her condition. With Hanna's tailoring, Nina transforms her appearance to confront the queen. In a private audience, Nina manipulates Agad using her fabricated prophetic identity. She reveals the queen once secretly relied on a Grisha healer named Pavlina, information Nina channels from Linner's spirit. Through veiled warnings and divine metaphors, Nina convinces Agata that Gel protects Grisha and punishes their murderers. She urges the queen to resist her generals and choose peace over war. With the Druskel gone to celebrate their victory at Drokstering, Nina seizes the opportunity to act. Despite the trauma, she steels herself for a mission, to free Magnus Opir and strike back at Fjerda, giving Ravka a fighting chance. In Chapter 23, Nikolai, unable to sleep, reflects on David's death and Ravka's vulnerability after the Fjerdan attack. Grieving deeply, he questions the future while watching Zoya slip into the woods alone. Curious and concerned, he follows her and discovers a hidden memorial garden where Zoya has planted flowers for every fallen Grisha. She confesses her guilt over losing the Darkling and laments the mounting losses, admitting she's running out of space to mourn. Nikolai reassures her, offering comfort and reminding her of her strength. Zoya reveals she cultivated a thornwood from the tunnel, a bitter, protective plant she sees as a reflection of herself. Nikolai disagrees, praising its endurance and resilience. They share a quiet, intimate moment as grief and mutual respect deepen their bond. Though tempted to stay with her, Nikolai parts ways, acknowledging his duty as king. As he returns to the palace, he silently affirms his role. Ravka will have its king. In Chapter 24, Mayu, Tamar, and Princess Eri continue their covert mission in Shuhan. After keeping Eri under watch in the nest, they follow a trail to a secret facility disguised as a dairy farm, which Queen Maki uses to create the Kurgud. Grisha, modified into soldiers through torture and parem. Inside, they find horrifying proof. Grisha prisoners, surgical equipment, and brass sarcophagi housing the altered Kurgud. One of them is Mayu's twin brother, Rayam, transformed with metal wings and pincers. Though he recognizes Mayu in his sleep, Queen Maki arrives and activates his programming with a stimulant mist. Rayam awakens and, despite Mayu's pleas, crushes her hand, his mind seemingly under Maki's control. Their evidence is now undeniable, but the Queen has intercepted their efforts to expose her. The chapter ends with Rayam weaponized and poised to kill as Maki watches with cruel satisfaction. In Chapter 25, Nina infiltrates the Druskel sector of the Ice Court under cover of night with Hanna's help, planning to extract Magnus Opir, the one man who could confirm the existence of Queen Tatiana's incriminating letters. Dressed in white and using a secret ice moat path, they climb into the sector and reach Broom's office, only to discover Optir has already escaped, using one of Nina's bone darts to pick his lock. A report confirms he fled with the letters, cementing his identity as Nikolai's father. While escaping, Nina is caught by Duran, who nearly exposes her, but she discovers his secret, an altar to Alina Starkov. Appealing to his conscience, Nina persuades him to help her flee. He warns her that Prince Rasmus is cruel at heart, not merely broken. Nina escapes across the invisible ice bridge, reflecting on her mission and Hanna's safety, determined to continue walking the dangerous path she's chosen. In Chapter 26, Alexander, inhabiting Yuri's body, journeys to find the cult of the Starless Saint. Though weary and cold, he finally hears word of the cult's location and discovers them camped near Guyana. Disguised once more as Yuri, he infiltrates the group and evaluates their resources, dismayed by their lack of discipline and ambition. The cult, led by Chernov, plans to flee south to avoid the war, but Alexander usurps leadership and denounces cowardice. He manipulates the group with claims of a vision from the Darkling, asserting that their saint will only return if they fight. He demands they march north toward the Fjerdan border, planning a dramatic reappearance in battle to inspire awe and solidify his sainthood. Channeling shadows to terrify and awe the pilgrims, Alexander secures their loyalty. As the cult chants north, he begins shaping them into the army he needs to return as a savior and Ravka's new ruler. In Chapter 27, Nikolai and Zoya travel to Ketterdam aboard the hidden airship Cormorant to negotiate for titanium. Disguised as privateers, they reconnect with Sturmhond's crew and reflect on the tension between duty and freedom. Upon arrival, they seek help from Kaz Brekker, who dramatically reveals himself after tailing them in disguise. Though Kaz initially questions their plan to steal from the heavily guarded Rentvir military base, Nikolai gains leverage by offering protection for the Wraith, Kaz's close ally Inej, against dangerous Kerch submersible warships. Nikolai reveals he has access to a device that can detect these threats. This convinces Kaz to consider the mission and leads him to invite Nikolai deeper into the Crow Club's secret tunnels to plan the heist. The chapter sets up an alliance between Ravka's king and Ketterdam's most notorious thief, raising the stakes for acquiring the titanium needed to build Ravka's war defense. In Chapter 28, Zoya, Nikolai, and Kaz finalize their titanium heist plan at Jesper and Wyland's Ketterdam mansion. Wyland identifies flaws in David's missile schematics and offers critical improvements. As the crew prepares to infiltrate the Rentvir base, Jesper and Wyland scout ahead while the others head to the cliffs where Zoya will summon the airship. Upon arrival, Zoya senses danger in the fog-shrouded coast and they're ambushed by a masked Suli tribe. Zoya speaks in Suli, revealing her heritage for the first time. The tribe tests her resolve, then reveals a hidden tunnel built during Kerch colonization that leads directly beneath the base. They allow the crew access on the condition that Zoya remembers her roots. Kaz admits he anticipated this Suli aid, using it as a backup plan. The chapter ends with the group splitting up to execute the heist, now aided by an unexpected and sacred passage beneath enemy territory. In Chapter 29, Mayu fights to protect Eri and Tamar as Rayam awakens, attacking under Queen Maki's control. Tamar and Mayu struggle to fend him off until Bergen utters a command that frees Rayam from his programming. Realizing what he's become, Rayam turns on Maki's guards, destroying the control systems and saving Tamar's life. Reunited with Mayu, he helps stabilize Bergen with Tamar's antidote to Parem. When the Tuvgarad return with Eri, Maki mocks their efforts, boasting that she'll erase all evidence and retain power. Eri denounces her cruelty, but Maki justifies her experiments as duty to strengthen Shuhan. Before she can retaliate, Queen Leigh Kirtaban, Eri and Maki's grandmother, arrives with loyal guards and Grisha. She reveals she had been hidden for her protection and exposes Maki's crimes. Leigh asserts her authority as the true Taban queen, strips Maki of her crown, and declares her rule at an end. In Chapter 30, Nina attends the final Heartwood ball beside Hana, who appears stunning but uncomfortable in her revealing gown. Beneath the surface of courtly finery, both women struggle, Hana with her identity and Nina with the looming war. At the ball, Prince Rasmus grows more confident, expressing romantic interest in Hana while bragging about Fjerda's military advancements. When Nina privately confronts Joran, he confesses to murdering Matthias, his own brother, and reveals deep guilt. Enraged, Nina nearly kills him but stops herself. After the ball, Hana comforts Nina. Nina admits the truth about Joran killing Matthias and her desire for vengeance. However, she chooses to stay for Hana's sake. Hana, facing pressure to accept a marriage proposal from Rasmus, admits she cannot marry a man and has only ever wanted Nina. The chapter ends with the two finally kissing, their bond deepening amidst the uncertainty of war and sacrifice. In Chapter 31, Nikolai and Kaz infiltrate a Kerch base to steal titanium for Ravka's war effort. With Zoya and Adric controlling the storm above, Nikolai swaps titanium for aluminum until Kaz warns guards are approaching. Forced to flee with only half the titanium, Nikolai releases the demon inside him to dislodge a stuck anchor, revealing his monstrous form to the crew. Though the storm masks their escape, the damage to the ship's hull and the demon's appearance threaten to expose Nikolai's secret. Back aboard, his crew reacts with fear, and he realizes trust may be broken. Later, in private, Nikolai confides in Zoya. As tensions rise with Fjerda and his parents' return from exile looms, Nikolai proposes marriage. Zoya, despite deep emotion, refuses. believing herself unfit to be queen. Yet she pledges to remain by his side as general and friend, affirming her loyalty and faith in him as the king Ravka truly needs. In Chapter 32, Mayu, Tamar, Bergen, Ryam, and the rescued Grisha leave the laboratory after freeing its captives, including 4 Kurgud soldiers. Though healed, the Grisha remain weakened and Ryam is emotionally hollow, unsure if he is still human. Queen Maki is imprisoned but unpunished, stirring Bergen's anger. The group travels to a summer palace to rest. Ryam refuses to return home, believing himself too changed. Mayu is called to testify before Queen Leigh, revealing the full story of Ryam's abduction and the horrors of the laboratory. Queen Leigh declares she will rule until a child's successor is ready, naming Eri and Maki as co-regents. Mayu protests Maki's lack of punishment, but Leigh reveals blackmail confessions prepared to control her. Leigh refuses to send troops to Ravka, citing neutrality and fear of Fjerda. Despite debts owed to Nikolai, she chooses diplomacy over war, forcing Ravka to face Fjerda without Shuhan's military aid. In Chapter 33, Alexander, posing as Yuri, leads his faithful followers into the fold under harsh conditions, hiding his powers while preparing them for war. Though he trains them and pretends to accept their rituals, Alexander sees their faith as both an asset and a burden. Searching for weapons, he and brother Azarov find only useless relics. When Azarov grows suspicious and exposes him as an impostor, Alexander kills him using a Nikavoya. Before he can hide the body, the Blight, Kiliklava, descends upon the nearby town of Adina. It destroys half the town, but mysteriously spares Alexander, deepening the pilgrims' reverence for him. Haunted by memories of building the second army for King Yevgeny, Alexander reflects on his past ideals and how they led to the creation of the Fold. Though he has lived many lives, shedding identities and accumulating power, he now questions if his legacy is salvation, or destruction masked as divinity. In Chapter 34, Nikolai confronts Adrik about his shaken trust and offers him the chance to resign. Adrik, still loyal but jaded, refuses. Zoya updates Nikolai on Fjerdan war strategies, suggesting the permafrost as the most likely invasion point. Their discussion is interrupted by Count Kirigan, who reports a ragged stranger demanding to see the king. When Nikolai meets him, the man reveals himself as Magnus Opyr, Nikolai's biological father, and the man who warned Os Alta of the bombing. Opyr confirms Nikolai's true parentage, asks him to protect his half-sister Linnea, and vows to disappear to preserve Nikolai's legitimacy. Before leaving, Opyr shares intelligence. Jarl Brum plans to marry his daughter to Prince Rasmus. This, combined with Fjerdan unpredictability, what Opyr calls Gurkenig, gives Nikolai an idea. As he returns to the lab, he resolves to take control of the war's direction, send Zoya on a crucial mission, and gamble everything to save Ravka. In Chapter 35, Nina and Hana wake together after a night of intimacy, but their brief joy is interrupted by duty. Ilva prepares them to leave for a military airbase. Though they joke, both women know Hana will likely be forced to marry Prince Rasmus. Instead, they decide to escape together, after helping Rasmus if they can. They arrive at Leviathan's Mouth, a massive sea-based Fjerdan war facility, and are assigned quarters. Nina discovers Fjerda plans to attack Ravka from both north and sea. From an observation tower, she watches Ravka's forces appear weak, until Zoya and Squallers unleash devastating lightning that annihilates Fjerdan troops and ships. Ravka had lured them into a trap. Redvin boasts that Fjerda still holds a secret weapon, one Prince Rasmus helped create. Nina realizes Rasmus cannot be trusted and must warn Nikolai. Trying to reach Hana, she is ambushed and drugged near the tower's base, falling unconscious before she can act. In Chapter 36, Zoya surveys the aftermath of her lightning strike on Fjerda's forces, devastation wrought by a carefully staged deception. Though the victory is tactical, Zoya feels no triumph. As reports confirm the Northern Front has engaged, she learns the Starless, alongside the Darkling, have appeared on the battlefield withholding action. Zoya predicts the Darkling will use the chaos to stage a dramatic return. A note arrives from the apparat, revealing he has captured Nina and demands Zoya come to Leviathan's Mouth alone. Despite Genya's pleas to stick to the battle plan and remain at Nikolai's side, Zoya refuses. She feels responsible for Nina's fate and is determined to rescue her, even if it means going alone into danger. Genya begs her not to go, reminding her that isolation led to the Darkling's downfall. But Zoya, blaming herself for Nina's past suffering, chooses vengeance and redemption, steeling herself to face whatever trap the Apparat has laid. In Chapter 37, Nikolai leads Ravka's forces at the northern border, executing a bold attack plan. Sun soldiers flood the field with light, while squalors and fabricators launch titanium rockets at the Fjerdan army. The first strike devastates the enemy, but Ravka's missile supply is limited. As Fjerdans regroup, Nikolai orders a second volley, knowing it's their last. Suddenly, Fjerda deploys a massive transport filled with drugged Grisha and strange bell-shaped weapons, parabolas that emit a paralyzing sound when struck. Ravkan soldiers collapse under the sonic assault unprotected. Fjerda's troops, wearing insulated helmets, begin massacring the helpless Ravkans. Desperate, Nikolai unleashes the demon within him, knowing it will cost him the crown. The shadow beast charges toward the bells, but begins to disintegrate under the vibration. On his knees, Nikolai prepares to die, bonded with the demon. In a final act of defiance and sacrifice, he commands it to destroy the enemy and save Ravka, regardless of the personal cost. In Chapter 38, Alexander, disguised as Yuri, is caught in the devastating sonic assault of Fjerda's bell weapons alongside the Starless. The sound prevents him from summoning his Nichevoya, leaving him and his followers helpless. As he tries to escape, he sees Nikolai's demon, released in a final act of sacrifice, struggling to survive the same sonic attack. Though tempted to flee, Alexander chooses instead to aid the demon. He channels his shadows into the creature, stabilizing its form and giving it strength. Together, they destroy the bells, ending the sonic assault. Ravkan troops rise, regroup, and rejoin the battle, briefly turning the tide. Alexander's contribution goes unnoticed by the Starless, who remain in pain and confusion. As Nikolai becomes surrounded by Fjerdan forces, Alexander considers helping again, but ultimately chooses not to. He tells the Starless they must pray, and turns his back on the battlefield, ready to let the king die and claim Ravka for himself. In Chapter 39, Zoya infiltrates Leviathan's mouth, determined to rescue Nina from the Apparat. Using mist and air currents powered by Juris' amplifier scales, she sneaks into the naval base disguised as a Fjerdan soldier. After neutralizing guards and sabotaging weapons, she reaches the prison tower and finds Nina captured, with the Apparat threatening her life. The Apparat offers Zoya a deal. Join him and support Vadik Demidov's claim to the Ravkan throne in exchange for the locations of secret bases imprisoning Grisha. He threatens to torture Nina using a heartrender addicted to Parem. As Nina suffers under the heartrender's power, Zoya realizes the depth of her love for her people, and that real strength lies in connection. Rejecting the Apparat's offer, Zoya kills the guards with lightning while Nina raises their corpses to capture him. When Parem gas is released, Zoya grabs Nina and smashes through the wall. In freefall, Zoya's wings unfurl, saving them both. In Chapter 40, Mayu, Tamar, and Ryam arrive on the battlefield with the Kurgud to find Ravkan forces surrounded and the king nearly defeated. Despite the chaos, Tamar insists on joining the fight, and the Kurgud, once weapons of the Shu, begin attacking the Fjerdan soldiers. With their overwhelming strength and fearlessness, they momentarily shift the battle's momentum. Flashbacks reveal Queen Leti refused to send Shu troops, but Princess Eri authorized the Ghosts, the Kurgud, to fight, since they don't exist. Now they fight for Ravka. As the Fjerdans resort to bombing their own men to win, Nikolai calls for retreat, knowing Brum is willing to sacrifice everything. Rather than flee, Nikolai urges the Kurgud and his demon to strike the Fjerdan bombers to buy time for Ravkan escape. The Kurgud rise into battle. Just as they near impact, a massive dragon appears, scattering the flyers. In shock, Mayu and the others stare skyward. Salvation has come from the sky. In Chapter 41, Nina is rescued from the Apparat's tower by Zoya, who has transformed into a dragon. They crash through the wall and fall until Zoya's wings catch the wind and they take flight. Disoriented and overwhelmed, Nina clings to Zoya's scaled back as they soar toward the front lines. Over the battlefield, Nina sees the Kurgud fighting for Ravka and recognizes the dire state of the war. Fjerdan bombers rain destruction from the skies, and Ravkan troops are trapped. Zoya, in dragon form, releases silver lightning, destroying bombers and tanks, and blocks the Fjerdan retreat with a wall of fire. Nina spots the Druskella advancing on King Nikolai. Zoya prepares to obliterate them, but Nina, remembering her promise to Matthias, begs her to stop. She knows that if they slaughter the Fjerdans, it will only deepen hatred and fear. Nina pleads for mercy, hoping to break the cycle of violence, and praying that Zoya can still hear her. In Chapter 42, Nikolai recognizes the dragon as Zoya, her lightning slicing across the sky and turning the tide of battle. With her arrival, Ravka gains a sudden advantage as Fjerdan forces are cut off by walls of flame. Hovering above, Zoya prepares to annihilate the enemy, but Nikolai silently pleads with her not to surrender to vengeance. Their eyes meet, and Zoya unleashes lightning, yet spares the Fjerdans. Her mercy stuns both sides. Soldiers begin kneeling, crying out Sancta Zoya and Senja Zoya Daja Kerkening, calling her a saint. One Druskella even begs forgiveness. When his captain tries to intervene, Fjerdan soldiers stop him, choosing surrender over death. The battlefield becomes a place of awe and reverence. The Starless kneel before the Darkling. The Fjerdans sound retreat. Nikolai sees Zoya's transformation as a miracle, one that spares lives and reshapes the war. Then, with a roar and a crack of thunder, the dragon vanishes into the clouds. In Chapter 43, Zoya, overwhelmed by the battlefield's aftermath and her dragon form, lands in a hidden cave with Nina. She's disoriented, emotionally raw, and unsure if her transformation is permanent. Though Zoya questions sparing the Fjerdans, she acknowledges it may have helped Ravka's peace. After a tense exchange, she agrees to return Nina to Leviathan's mouth, where Nina warns her that Prince Rasmus cannot be trusted. Zoya returns to the battlefield and finds the Fjerdans in retreat and a truce declared. She crash lands at camp, exhausted, and is met by Nikolai and her friends. They reveal the battlefield declared her a saint and that the Darkling was the first to kneel. Zoya now wears Juris's black scale armor, and her transformation has changed her in ways she's still processing. Meanwhile, Fjerda shifts tactics, pushing for Ravkan's succession through Vadik Demidov. Nikolai prepares to confront this political threat, while Zoya, frustrated, threatens to go live in a cave. In Chapter 44, Nina returns to the Fjerdan naval base under her Mila disguise, tense and fearful that her cover may be blown. Chaos reigns as soldiers panic over the dragon sighting, allowing her to move unseen. She plans to reunite with Hana and escape, but when she reaches the Brum's quarters, she finds them empty. Following the sound of sobbing, she discovers Ilva weeping over Hana's broken body. Joran reveals that the prince struck Hana, then suffered a strange fit, after which Hana fell. Nina realizes Rasmus killed her. Consumed by rage, she confronts Jarl Brum, calling him a coward who values power over justice, exposing her true fury. When Rasmus appears, vibrant and eerily alive, he invites Mila to accompany him to Ostkervo for peace talks. Nina curtsies, masking her hatred. She vows to avenge Hana's death even if it costs her life, no longer spy, but soldier once more. In Chapter 45, Nikolai and Zoya attend the peace summit in Ostkervo alongside the Fjerdan delegation. Tension builds as Prince Rasmus arrives with Nina, whose shaken demeanor reveals something has changed. Brum attempts to assert dominance, bringing Driskel and even Nikolai's estranged parents to support a Ravkan pretender, Vadik Demidov. During negotiations, Brum denounces Nikolai's legitimacy, prompting the Kerch delegate to question his right to rule. Nikolai boldly admits he is a bastard and renounces his Lantsov claim. Instead, he calls on the noble houses to decide Ravka's future. As Brum presses his case, Prince Rasmus defies him, siding with peace and recognizing Nina's sacrifice. Nikolai shocks the chamber by declaring Zoya the rightful ruler. He kneels and proclaims the beginning of the Nazyalensky dynasty. Though met with mixed reactions, many nobles join him in hailing Zoya as Dragon Queen. Ravka's future now rests in her hands. In Chapter 46, Zoya is blindsided when the Zemeni ambassador asks if she will accept the crown. Furious with Nikolai for his plan, she reflects on Juris's visions and the weight of her past. Though uncertain, Zoya addresses the chamber. She is a soldier, a Grisha, and a Suli. Will they accept a queen like her? One by one, Ravkan leaders, nobles, and even Count Kirigan voice support. The Apparat protests, calling her unholy, but the Darkling interrupts, exposing the Apparat's role in past betrayals. As panic rises, Zoya commands his arrest and the Fjerdans agree to a temporary truce. Alone with Nikolai afterward, Zoya tries to resist, but he gently insists she's the leader Ravka needs. She confesses her fear of ruling and her past pain, then, finally, her love for him. They kiss, and with that, Zoya accepts her role. She will be Ravka's queen, with Nikolai by her side. In Chapter 47, Nina reels with confusion aboard the ship after the peace treaty is announced. She studies Prince Rasmus closely, unsettled by his behavior. At Leviathan's mouth, Rasmus stuns Broom by publicly exiling him for treason. When Broom pulls a gun, Joran shoots him before he can fire. Rasmus shows compassion, but when he turns to Nina, she realizes the truth. Alone in the royal airship, Nina questions him, and the truth emerges: it's Hana, alive. She'd accidentally killed the real Rasmus in self-defense during an attack and used tailoring to impersonate him. With Joran's help, she swapped appearances, saving herself and seizing a chance to lead Fjerda. Hana confesses deeper truths about her identity, her body, and her hope for a better world. Nina accepts it all. The two vow to rule Fjerda together, in secret as Grisha. With peace on the horizon, they share love, a new future, and choose a new name, a saint's name, for a new beginning. In Chapter 48, Nikolai, Zoya, and Genya travel through the snow-covered mountains toward the monastery of St. Felix, escorted by sun soldiers. The Darkling accompanies them, bound and subdued, showing no fear of the harsh conditions. They navigate treacherous passes, reflecting on recent battles, the blight, and the sacrifices that have been made. Upon reaching the monastery, they encounter a vast clearing dominated by the Thornwood, a massive tree central to the Obispaya ritual. A group of Shu monks surrounds the tree, revealing that the blight cannot be stopped by conventional means. Someone must physically hold the doorway between worlds. The Darkling volunteers, acknowledging his past crimes and accepting his fate. With Zoya, Nikolai, and Genya present, the thorn pierces him, drawing him into the tree and silencing the demon within. The ritual ends the blight, and the fold begins to heal. The chapter concludes with the trio leaving the monastery, stepping into a world of spring and renewal, carrying hope for Ravka's future. In Chapter 49, the morning of Zoya's coronation begins with Genya preparing her hair and helping her dress in a dark blue velvet gown embroidered like dragon scales, with a silver lightning-like cape. Zoya reflects on her nightmares from the monastery and the Thornwood, haunted by the Darkling's pain, but she steels herself to fulfill her duties as queen. The coronation proceeds with the assembly of dignitaries, Grisha and allies, including delegates from Kerch, Zemeni, Shu, and Fjerda, along with soldiers and friends who survived the war. Zoya is crowned with a titanium and sapphire crown shaped like dragon wings, symbolizing her strength and triumph. She accepts her role as Ravka's queen while acknowledging the losses and sacrifices made along the way. After the ceremony, Zoya, Genya, and Alina discuss the ongoing threat of the Darkling. They decide to send a message to Kazbreker in Ketterdam to secure St. Felix relic necessary to contain the blight, ensuring the Darkling cannot rise again.